what might be advantageous about using this vector-based search approach and these embeddings in terms of what they mean and what they represent versus doing like a, TF-IDF has been around for a long time. I can search based on keywords. I can do a full text search. There's lots of ways to search text.
Right.
That concept isn't new, but this vector search seems to be powerful in a certain way. From your perspective, how would you describe that?
Yeah, I think that the linchpin here is the word embedding, right? The vector search capability itself is a pretty straightforward mathematical operation that in and of itself doesn't necessarily have value, right? It's like other mathematical operations. It's a tool, right? The question is like, where does the value come from? And I would argue that the value comes from the embeddings. And we'll talk about what exactly they are. We'd just point a flag and say embeddings are represented as vectors, which is why the vector database is so critical in this scenario. But why are embeddings helpful in the first place, right? So embeddings come from a different set, right? Like a very, very wide set of neural networks that have been trained on textual data. And they create within them representations of different terms, different surface forms, sentences, paragraphs, etc., that map onto a certain location in vector space. The cool thing about embeddings is that it just so happens, and we can talk about why, it just so happens that terms that have semantic similarity have a closeness in vector space. And that means that if I search for the word queen and I have the word king embedded as well in my vector database, and I also have the word dog, right? Because the word king is more semantically similar to the word queen, I will get that as a result and not the word dog, right? And that allows me to basically leverage the quote unquote understanding of the world that machine learning models and specifically neural networks have, right? Large language models have of the world, right? In a way that I can't quite leverage from other modalities like TF-IDF and other, BM25, et cetera, that like look at a more lexical kind of perspective on the world, right? And so when we talk about, like practical use cases, right, like RAG comes up very, very frequently. And the reason for that is because we are in semantic space. A user interacts with the system in semantic space. So that means that they ask the system a question in natural language. We can take that natural language and basically, again, quote unquote, understand the user's intent, right? And map it again into our high dimensional vector space and find content that we've embedded that has some similarity to that intent, right? And so we're not looking for a exact lexical match, but we're able to take a step back, right, and look at the more ambiguous intention and meaning of the query itself, and match to it things that are semantically similar.